So my identity has always been a confusing subject matter to both myself and to those around me. My dad is a dark brown immigrant from the Philippines, and my mom is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman from Kentucky. I have a brother whose father was black, so he's my half-brother. And in my family, we joke about how we cover the whole rainbow. Although I love coming from a diverse family, it's caused some significant confusion in my life. Ever since I was little, I never truly knew how to identify myself. When we took standardized tests, I had to select other as my ethnicity, which was always a little bit unsettling. Coming from a town that is pretty much completely white, I knew that I clearly stood out. I think I had exactly one brown friend in elementary school. Needless to say, I really started to feel that confusion in high school. It frustrated me to know that my white friends thought of me as their brown friend, and I was never really accepted by other Asian people either. Most people assume I'm Mexican. It literally happened this morning at breakfast, which just adds another layer of identity confusion. And to be honest, I always feel more accepted by the Mexican community than I do my own, because I was never really white or actually Filipino, so. But hey, apparently I'm always Mexican. There was even a teacher at my high school who came up to me and spoke to me as if I was a Mexican student who didn't know English. So needless to say, that's the town I come from. My father experienced a somewhat similar childhood. Not the Mexican part, but he came to America as a kid and immediately was expected by his family to become American. But my grandparents only spoke Tagalog in the house. But he was threatened with my grandmother's sandal if he replied in anything but English. He was bullied by all of the Jewish kids of Skokie, which seems a little bit ironic. And my father always wants to stay connected with his Filipino culture, and my family always stresses that. Yet, when I ask them about going back to the motherland, they reply, "Hell no, we came here for a reason." My dad grew up with these conflicting wants of wanting to be a proud immigrant, yet wanting to be American. So when I got to college in Chicago, it was the first time I was exposed to communities of more people with stories like mine. I met a friend who was also half white, half Filipino, which was mind-blowing to me. But what he told me was that he didn't even consider himself Asian. This was something I had never even thought of. I always knew that I had both sides to me. It was really the confusion of why no one wanted them to coexist. And hearing it from a fellow mixed kid made me really think about who I wanted to be in this next chapter of my life. Coming to college was the first time in my life that I found friends that were Asian that weren't my cousins. And I've met mixed people like me and white friends that never told me, well, you just act white anyway. And it felt good. It was the first time in my life that I felt like both sides of me were really coming together, and I didn't have to separate them from one another. As I've been exposed to the diversity Chicago has to offer, hearing the stories of so many different people, I'm finally starting to embrace my own ambiguity. I have grown up experiencing a collision of American and Filipino cultures. My kitchen was decorated with a painting of a cow alongside a giant-sized fork and spoon, which is a Filipino tradition. From feasts of pancit and bistec and adobo cooked by my tita Malen to horseback riding with my mom, I've been immersed in two completely different cultures. And it feels like I'm the human bridge that connects the two. I have realized that my life is unique. I have a first-hand experiencing different cultures and understanding their foundations. I find myself balancing both my mother's and my father's values. My father emphasizes hard work and grit and determination, and also becoming a doctor. And my mother tells me that it's important to do what you love, because your heart is a priority. And for me, I strive to be in the middle of those two, working hard for the things I'm passionate about, which unfortunately for my dad isn't becoming a doctor. In today's world, people are constantly struggling to latch on to an identity for themselves, or to even find one for that matter. My biggest takeaway about my identity in my life so far is that life is all about connection. When we create boundaries within ourselves, there's no way we can understand who we are. We try so hard to wrap up our identities in a little box with a bow on top, but that just isn't really possible. We think that once we can put our fingers on it, we'll be comfortable with who we are, but I don't really think that's it. I think we should be flexible with who we are because the human experience is never concrete. As a mixed woman, a college student, a daughter, a sister, a friend, and an American, I can tell you this with confidence. Life is all about the gray area, because nothing is ever black or white, pun intended. The gray area is what makes the human experience. Find comfort in the confusion of who you are, because you'll never have one clear answer, besides being human. Thank you.